Hi, welcome back to Golf Training Hacks. You know, a lot of golfers have trouble staying compressed into the golf swing. And that's because they don't have the strength in their hips and legs to control the rotational forces in the golf swing. And as you know, there are a lot of rotational forces, particularly on the downswing. And there's a lot of rotational forces coming into the hips, especially as you get closer to impact. So when you reach maximum leg, you got a lot of rotational force building up. So when your forward arm is parallel to the ground, you're at your maximum leg point. Now, as you're rotating through this with your hips and your hands are driving towards the ground and the club head is driving towards the ball, you have a lot of rotational force. And that rotational force is causing a lot of golfers to either stand up too quickly at impact, travel too far forward over their front foot, or just not get the timing right for this strong extension on the front side as we come into and through impact. But that's not the only thing that's going on in your hips as you're coming through the downswing. As you get closer to impact, your hips are actually decelerating. And it's the sequential deceleration of the golf swing that puts energy into the ball. So your hips decelerate, then your torso, shoulders, arms, hands, club shaft, and eventually all that energy is transferred to the ball. But if you don't have the strength to control the rotational energy, to be able to decelerate and create the timing of the extension at the right point at impact, standing up could occur, you can sway out over your front foot, and this timing just isn't right. So you need strength in your hips, but strength that will enable you to control the rotational forces in the golf swing. And in this video, we're going to help you with that. We're going to give you some exercises to help you strengthen your hips so that you can better control the rotational forces that are at play in a golf swing. So let's get started. In this video, we're going to go over the basic technique for a squat. Now, to get rotational control in your golf swing, to get strength in your hips, a squat is a great place to start. So let's talk about good squat technique. So let's not make squatting so complicated. It's like sitting down. Now, from the side, the first movement is backwards. You're going to go into a hip hinge. Now, if you've been with Golf Training Hacks for a while, you know that the hip hinge is the basic athletic position. It's the position that a second baseman would be in when they're getting ready and the pitch is being thrown. And it's your address position. So in the squat, the first movement is a hip hinge back. From the front, a real simple cue that solves a lot of problems is keep the arches in your feet. You have to fight to keep the arches in your feet because what you don't want to do in a squat is dump your knees in. So when you go back into your hip hinge, you begin to think about keeping an arch in your feet. Your knee should travel over the outside half of your feet. So you're going to hip hinge back. I'm keeping the arch in my feet, and I'm going to go down, and I'm fighting to keep the arch in my feet. All I'm thinking about now is going backwards and keeping an arch in my foot. You don't want it to look like this. That's a bad position. It's a very weak position. Actually, by keeping the arch in your feet and having your knees travel over the outside half of your feet, what you're actually doing is putting your hips in external rotation, and that's a very strong position, and that's the position you want to squat from. So once again, you're going to hip hinge back. You want to keep the arches in your feet. You want to fight that all the way down. So I'm hip hinging back. I'm focusing on the arches of my feet. Don't make the squat too difficult. It's like sitting down. In this video, we're going to use the squat to help you get strength in your hips to control the rotational energy that's coming into those hips in the golf swing. And we're going to do that with a squat into a step. This pattern is going to help you get single leg strength and begin to set up your hip muscles to control the rotation of a golf swing. So here we go. The first move in the squat is a hip hinge back. The cue to remember is keep an arch in your feet. You want your knees to travel over the outside half of your feet. So you're going to squat, and then you're going to come to a step. Go back to a squat, and step. And you can begin to alternate if you'd like. Or, if you want, you can stay on one side and do reps on one side. By moving from a squat to a single leg position, you're beginning to control the rotational forces in the golf swing, because as you are moving into this position, you have to stabilize on one leg. And that's really important to begin to control the rotational forces in the golf swing. In this video, we're going to advance our squat to step pattern, and we're going to put a rotational movement in the step. Once again, you want to control the rotational velocity in the golf swing, you need to be really strong on one leg. And that means you have to control rotation on one leg as well. So you not only have to be strong in your squat pattern, you have to be strong and stable on one leg, and you have to be able to rotate on one leg. So how do we start the squat? Hip hinge back, keep the arch in your feet. Remember, you want to fight that position. You don't want to drop your feet in and get flat-footed. You want to fight the position. You want to keep your arch in your feet. Hip hinge back. It's like sitting down. You sit down and up. That's the squat. Now we're going to go into, that's the step, squat, and step. Now we're going to put a rotation in that step movement. Keep fighting the arch. Keep fighting for that position. Now you could go, you could alternate, or you could stay on one side. So you can use a squat pattern, you can move into one leg, and then do some rotations on the single leg. That's going to help you control the rotational forces of the golf swing.